Hello again YouTube, Mad Dog here, welcome back to my channel. So whilst we're all under these lockdown restrictions and the weather has been a bit miserable to say the least over here in the UK, what I thought to do today is a bit of an experiment and a little bit of research, you might say, into one of my favourite carry items, which is the fuel that goes into and around the Esbit style of stove. So down here on the bench I've got several brands, different makes of fuel for the Esbit style of stove, and I thought we'd look into the qualities, the pitfalls, the pros and cons of each one. So stay tuned and I'll share with you what I found and my opinions. Stay tuned. Welcome back. So as you can see on the bench here, I've got a couple of my old Esbit stoves. This is a cheap copy. I do like the Esbit style of stove. The pocket size, the light, the convenient. They're just enough for, you know, if you're out for a day or two and you can put your billy cup, your bush pot, whatever on there, just enough for a brew or to warm a meal through, an MRE, etc. Then for me, absolutely love them. I've used them for many years and they're still one of my favourites despite all the modern, you know, advancements in stoves and different styles of stove. My genuine Esbit here, I made a little leather pouch for it. So this is a genuine German Esbit stove, copied by many people over the years. So as you can see there, I've got it crammed with a few extra goodies in here. So I've got a ferro rod and a piece of hacksaw blade, just so that I can get any of the fuels lit in pretty much any conditions. A couple of bits of flint and a couple of tablets of fuel ready to go in there. So I'll just keep them in there because they do actually lie flat within the Esbit stove itself. Obviously the flint I can use with one of my pendant strikers, or I can use that as a striker for my ferro rod, because flint, a sharp piece of flint, also works like that. So yeah, I keep that together as a kit in my little leather pouch. I do recommend getting a pouch for your stoves because some fuels, as you'll see, are sooty, and it just keeps your pockets, your jacket pocket or your Bergen, whatever, clean. And it's also, I know this sounds daft, but if you've just put your Esbit stove away, blown it clean, and you put it in a leather pouch, especially on a day like today where it's cold and frosty, oh, you've got a hand warmer as well, but I won't get one free. So I would recommend getting yourself a little pouch. So moving on, the fuels themselves. So I've got across a spectrum board a variety of different fuels here on this block. Oh, camera's falling over. Do bear with me. So varying in price, and crikey me, I'm having some technical issues. Bear with me. Okay, I think that's stable. Right, so we've got a selection of mainstream common brands of fuel for our Esbit stove, and what I've done is I've made a bit of a table here, and what I've done, I've obviously named them. I've given the price per unit, as in each block of fuel, the weight of each block of fuel, a clean burn 1 out of 10. So does it burn hot and clean? They're the two most important things with these fuel tablets. Does it burn hot, as in efficiently, and does it leave a dirty sooty residue and or smoke emitted whilst burning? So I'm going to roll them into one unit and mark them out of 10. A burn time. Now I've also done a burn time 1 out of 10. but when I say burn time, I mean usable flame. So yes, some of them burn longer than my stated figures, but they just smoulder away, or the flame is that small where it's not emitting enough heat to have any real useful effect. And then at the end, an overall rating 1 out of 10, and a couple of thoughts and opinions. So I'll show you around each of the fuels now, and we'll get into the burn test. Stay tuned. Okay, so as you can see, I've got my fuels and their representative packaging on this block. So I'll start from my left, and here we have the Esbit fuel for the Esbit stoves. Then moving on, we have the Highlander fuel cells, fuel tablets, the Combat fuel tablets. They do actually smell like the old-fashioned military hexamine tablets as well. They have that distinctive fishy sort of smell to them. Then here we've got the Fire Dragon gel fuel pods, and then we've got the Colons fuel pellets or tablets. Again, a broad-based selection. I also have a Zip Firelighter. Now this is the cheapest entry. I've thrown this in here just to show the reasons why we don't actually just use a fire starter, and we do actually use a fuel. That's more of an also ran, which I'll add at the end of this experiment. So before I get actually into lighting all these up, I also want to mention this, and it is quite important, especially for people that are new to bushcraft, camping, or have never used this type of equipment before. Is my first recommendation: once you've brought your stove and your fuel, get yourself some Ziploc bags and put your fuel tablets immediately into a Ziploc bag, because when I purchased these, I've had some of these a long time, but these Esbit fuel tablets I've only just received, and I literally put them in the shed overnight, and because of the condensation etc and the nature of these, you can see the cardboard, it's soaking wet. It started to, you know, take on water, and the fuel has started to go wet, you know, and break down straight away. It's like it's hydroscopic. So I would advise anybody to put their fuel of any sorts in a Ziploc bag, keep it dry and keep it out of the air and the atmosphere. So what we're going to do, we're going to light these bad boys up. I'll just take the gel out of its packaging. This is the most expensive contender, so there we go. And straight away for me, this is a negative in the fact that we've got all this material that we've got to cart home with us. So, you know, it's no good just leaving it in the wilderness. Anything you take in with you, take out with you, especially plastic packaging and stuff like that. Don't be littering, and don't burn it, you know, it's not good. And plus it'll make a mess of your stove. So just quickly running through the specs on these. So the Esbit fuel tablets, they work out at 29 pence each. They weigh 4 grams each, and they burn, I have already done these experiments, for approximately 5 minutes and 50 seconds. The Highlander fuel tablets, they're 44 pence each. They're, as you can see, substantially larger. They weigh 19.7 grams each, and they burn for approximately 8 minutes and 40 seconds. Usable flame. The Combat fuel cells are 86 pence each. Now these are getting quite expensive now, but as you can see, also quite a bit larger, and they are 25.2 grams each and burn for approximately 12 minutes. The Fire Dragon gel, these are the most expensive. They come in at around £1 each. They weigh 28.8 grams, and they burn for around 4 to 4.5 minutes. So quite a low burn time, but they do burn hot. Then last on the fuel lineup are the Colon's round tablets. Now these weigh 7 grams each. They're only light, and they cost 22p or the equivalent each. So we're going to light them all up now. I'm going to time lapse it so I don't bore you all to death with watching the flames for minutes and minutes, and then we'll come back. I'll cut the video, we'll come back, wrap up, and I'll give you the results based on my opinions. It's not scientific, as you can see, but a real bench experiment. So let's I'll cut this bit of the video and we'll crack on. Okay, so as you can see, we're approximately halfway through the burn on these fuel tablets. Already I can see which ones are going to be leaving more of a residue than the others, which I'll come to in the wash up session at the end. They're all performing really well, given their, you know, their size for the heat output. It's actually warming the entire shed up from the heat given off of these things. Yeah, they're all impressive, they're all good, and I don't think you'd honestly go far wrong with any of them. Clearly some of them burn hotter than the others, so obviously the bluer and the lighter the flame, the hotter in general terms. The more orange or red the flame, the cooler. So as you can see, some of them are burning hotter than others, but we'll cut back when they've all actually burnt right down, and we'll have a look at the remains, and I'll give you my thoughts and opinions and what I would recommend to you guys and lasses for the best value and best efficiency for your Esbit stove. Stay with me. Welcome back. So as you can see, all the fuel cells, all the fuel tablets have burnt away now, just leaving behind their residue, if any. Obviously, bearing in mind we have the scorch marks on the block. Obviously it's a wooden block. Now I've got my sheet here with my homemade little chart on there. I'm going to take a photograph of this and post it at the end for any of you guys and lasses that are remotely interested in my findings. But if you do use these stoves, it may have some interest or value. So straight away we can see the Fire Dragon gel, which is the most expensive entry, has left a horrible skin-like, slimy, ashy residue here on the block, and quite a big pattern of it, because the gel actually starts to melt and run whilst it's burning. So whilst this gel burns very hot, I mean, you can see with the colour of the flame, it's blue, it emits an awful lot of heat, it's violent with its burn. So it only burns for 4 minutes, but it does boil water very quickly because of the high output. For me, for the price and the fact that you've got the packaging to take home with you, the horrible mess that it leaves, I've given this overall 6 out of 10 on my overall ratings score. So for me, although it's the most expensive one, isn't the most ideal. Excuse me. So moving on now to the original Esbit fuel. So that's the original Esbit fuel. So where do I start with this? You know, without any bias, because it's manufactured by Esbit, the fuel cell blocks are very small, which is a good thing in the fact that you can have as many or as less amount of fuel that you need for your job. So if you're only boiling a small amount of water, then just use 1 or 2 fuel blocks. If you're heating a full MRE, add more. So it gives you that versatility. However, the Esbit fuel cells come in at 29p each for 4 grams of fuel. Now, whilst they do burn clean and effectively, they burn for around 5 minutes and 50 seconds. So it's not a massive long burn time, as you would expect for the size of the fuel cell. I've given them an overall rating of 7 out of 10. It's quite a clean burn, quite a hot burn, and leaves just a small amount of sooty residue. Do excuse me, my nose is starting to run. It's quite cold out here tonight. So moving on to, I'll say the Colans or Coglans, however you pronounce that, fuel pellets. Now these are, I would say, a second place contender, because they come in at 22p each. They weigh 7 grams each. They burn very clean. They leave a slight ashy residue, as in a very small pinnacle of spent fuel, you might say. So they're not too bad. You know, one good blow and it's gone. It's not a slimy residue. So they burn hot as well. They give a nice even constant blue flame. Like I say, 22p each. They burn for around 8 minutes and 40 seconds. So that's a real good burn time for the size and the weight of that fuel tablet. You get 24 in a pack. Yeah, that came in honestly a close second. I give that an 8 out of 10. Now, the other reason this one came second for me is the fact that the pellets are round. So when you're dealing with a square Esbit stove, it's nice to have square fuel, because that way you get the most fuel storage for the area that you're given. If you've got round fuel pellets, then when you book them together, you're wasting space. Excuse me. So I'll come now to the combat. The military products, solid fuel tablets. Like I say, they do smell like the original hexamine tablets. They have that fish glue, plywood glue sort of smell about them. So I do recommend any of these types of burns or stoves, please use them responsibly in a ventilated area. I've had my shed door open, I've got plenty of fresh air coming in. So you know, if you're camping using any of these in a tent, be mindful of that. You know, they can give off toxic fumes. You know, it's not ideal. Use them ideally in the open air, or at least under a tarp where you've got good ventilation. So I digress. So the combat fuel tablets, they're quite expensive. They're 86p each, and they're quite heavy. They're 25.2 grams, and the burn, yes, it burns for a very long time. You're talking 12 plus minutes, but at least 4 of those minutes the flame is quite a reduced, low, I won't say cool, but not a widespread flame. It does leave some residue, but not masses. And for the price, I'm basically giving these maybe a 3rd place purely on price and weight. For the amount of fuel that you get and the price that they are, I'm giving this an overall 8 out of 10. It's a good fuel block because of the long burn time. But do excuse me, but for me, I don't know, 86p each. You make your own mind up. Lastly, but not leastly for me, is the Highlander tablets. Now, whilst these are quite budget friendly as well, they weigh in at 44p each. You get 8 tablets per box. They weigh 19 grams each. They burn clean and hot and consistent. That's another thing I've probably failed to mention. They're a nice controlled, consistent burn. Like the gel, going back to the gel, it burns violently and have it for 4 minutes. You know, like it's like somebody having a meltdown and losing the temper. So that's a nice controlled, regulated, even burn. which I like. That means I can monitor my cooking, my boiling of water. I've got some sort of control and expectation of when my food or drink is ready. So yes, these for me are my number one pick. I've given them 9 out of 10. They burn for 8 minutes 40 seconds, usable flame. They clean nice and burning hot with minimal smoke. They're 44p each, and you know, they seem to stay good, as in if you do leave them open to the air, they don't seem to turn into a ball of slime like a lot of them do straight away. Do excuse me, I'm just going to give my runny beak a wipe. So that concludes my little bench experiment for these fuels. I do recommend, like I've said, putting them all in a plastic bag to stop their degrading through the water ingression out of the air. I'm going to fire this up in a minute just for, like I said, I would, the zip lighters, 15p each, 19 grams. They burn for 13 plus minutes, but you will see instantly why we don't use these in an Esbit stove. Before I sign off on that note, another little tip or trick. When you use these stoves, they can become quite tight to open. You can get a lot of build up of soot or crud in the little rivets, the hinge points there, and on a cold frosty day can also freeze shut. Little tip or trick from the Mad Dog: if you can get any or know anybody that will lend you some high temperature anti-seize, like copper grease type of spray or lubricant. I've got an old one here, but it still works, copper grease. Just give it a small squirt every so often. Doesn't need masses on that area, and work it in a bit. It's non-flammable, it's heat resistant, and it will help the long life of your stove's hinges, especially on these cheaper models. Little tip. So I'm going to cut now to the lighting of the zip Firelighter and just show you why we don't use them in a stove. I will open the door for this one. That one, by the way, on the list comes in at 2 out of 10 overall, 1 for clean burning efficiency, as you will see in a few minutes. So I'm going to sign off now and leave you with that flame and the soot and the smoke and all that good stuff. If you're still with me right now, thank you all very much for watching. I hope somebody out there does find this useful. It's just based on my opinions. Value for money, I recommend the Highlander. I think they're good value for money and the good reliable tablet. Don't forget, you can scrape the surface of these tablets and light them with a ferrocerium rod. You don't have to use a lighter. Some of the more common names and, you know, fancy modern stuff, value for money, it's your decision. Try them, see what you think. This is just my findings and from what I found with my experience. As you can see, not scientific at all, but like I said, thank you all very much for staying with me. If you have watched this right through, I feel sorry for you, but I appreciate it, thank you, and I hope you find it useful. And until the next time, look after each other, stay safe out there, take care. Mad Dog signing off. Yeah! Why don't we use these fuel firelighters in an Esbit stove? Let's find out. Crikey me, that burns good straight away. He says. Already, look at that soot. Oh, crikey me. Ew. yeah, these burn for a long time, but as you can see straight away, the flame is very orange, very cool. Look at that soot. Whew. I'm gonna have to get myself out of here and use it as a firelighter as it was meant. Ladies and gentlemen, don't use firelighters in an Esbit stove. Yes, it looks like a cheap option or a cheap, clever alternative. Trust me, it isn't. It takes forever to boil water with a cold flame. You know, when I say a cold flame, a cool flame where it's burning cool. You know, it's not burning blue and hot. Get the right fuel for your stove. Don't scrimp on it. You're just going to create more trouble for yourself. You'll get a dirty, sooty cook vessel. You'll get a dirty, sooty stove. It'll take ages to boil water if you ever do. Not worth it. And crikey me, this shed's filling up already, and I've got the door over there ajar. It's slightly open. Look at this. It's terrible. So crikey me, I don't know if that's picking up in here or not, but that is shocking. Don't do it. Anyway, Mad Dog signing off again. Take care. Yeah.